The AWE DLC of Control was a signal from Remedy that Alan Wake had not been forgotten. Shortly after, Alan Wake Remastered was released with the intention of introducing the character to new audiences. For longtime fans, part of the fun was trying to go through and find any changes from the original. Some of these were expected, such as including a letter from the FBC in Sheriff Sarah Breaker's office. The intention was to give a more concrete link between the two games. Seeing as her father is a retired FBC agent and the fact Bright Falls is the site of a recurring AWE, it seems fitting that they would stay in touch. Sarah even puts a sticky note on the envelope to remind her to ask her father about it. Some of these were confusing though, such as changing the Tom the Poet poster in the intro nightmare sequence. In the original, it looked like this, in the remaster, it looked like that. The reasoning behind this is the centerpiece of the confusion surrounding Thomas Zane. For a decade, we have all known him as a poet. However, after the AWE DLC, the world seems to have been altered so that he was a filmmaker, a true Mandela effect in action. This poster suggests the poet was simply a character played in a film. Whether this is true or Alan is simply reimagining the character of Zane for his newest book is something we won't know until Alan Wake 2 is released. Putting these aside, the biggest new inclusion involves the QR code scenes placed throughout the game. While these were not in the original Xbox 360 release, Remedy added them for the PC Steam release. Originally used as Easter eggs, they linked out to a few different things. One was the official Alan Wake Facebook page, another simply had text that said, turns out this isn't too bad even if you're not sitting on a couch when you play it. Who knew? This just being a reference to the game being on a computer instead of console. And the last is a gif of Sam Lake doing the Max Payne face with the text, "Constipation, that looks painful." Simple Easter eggs like these were fun for its time, but didn't add anything to the story or setting. However, for the remastered version, the links for these codes were changed. This time they are relevant. Each depict Alan sitting in a dark room, writing. Just like the AWE DLC, he is pecking at the typewriter in the process of making a new story. Let's take a moment to have some review. During his decade-long absence, Alan has been working on new manuscripts, hoping to find a story that allows him to escape from the dark place and return to the world. Each one up to this point has failed. American Nightmare is an example of a failed attempt. The problem is, his memory isn't the most reliable. As explained in that game, the memory of writing the story is gone so that he can assume the POV of the main character with no knowledge of how the plot goes. Who knows how many different methods he's used, but at this point, most of them are forgotten.
I've written and rewritten, deconstructed, reconstructed, experimented with different voices, changed the style, changed myself, forgotten the language, relearned the language. Have I been here before? Gone down this path before? The darkness wants to hide the past to make me lose my way. You must know where you've been to know where you're going. I trust what I read on these pages. I wrote them for a reason. My notes to myself. The only way to make progress, recap, then write more. The style then. Lose the fat. Make it clear. Ugly. Functional. Present. Be blunt. Only the brutal truth. Cut through the reality, tear it apart, rewrite it. Be clever, make them do the work, form the image in their minds, they make it, you just imply. Incept. They're drawn to the mystery, obsessed. You set it up, they put it together. Their interpretation, and there's only one because you give them no choice. And they believe in it, because it's theirs now.
With these words in mind, let's do exactly what Alan just said the reader would do. Take his words, attempt to understand the implications he is making, and create our own reality about what he means by them. In essence, let's listen to the 3 QR code scenes present in Alan Wake Remastered and attempt to guess at what he means by all of it.
I was trapped here. Had been for what felt like years. Outside reality. What we count as real. I wrote to find a way out. I wrote to master this place, to learn its secrets, use that knowledge to rewrite my reality. Once upon a time, I had written hard-boiled crime books set in New York City, till I was sick of it. The Alex Casey books, A detective solving cases of murder, corruption and madness in the Dark City. This place tapped into my unconscious mind, drew from there, twisting what it stole into a nightmare that took shape around me. A mystery. A detective story. I needed a detective to guide me. Echoes of Casey haunted me.
Anytime a writer creates a world of their own, the world remains a permanent landscape in their mind. The version of New York Alan crafted during the Alex Casey books could not be taken away simply because he was tired of writing it. The implication we are given here is that the Dark Place extracted this setting from his unconscious, creating a mystery story based upon his previous books. While never explicitly stated here, a version of Alex Casey was made to navigate this landscape. We already have the proof that an FBI agent going by the same name has been looking into the disappearance of Wake. There is no confirmation whether this occurred in a previous story or is something that will happen in the future as part of the current story. Given that the return trailer found in Quantum Break details this rough situation, maybe the Alan we see in Vision 1 is directly referencing this trailer. These events could be a dead story like we see in American Nightmare, but it could also be foreshadowing for something in Alan Wake 2. We'll have to wait and see.
The Dark Place was an endless waking dream. I saw visions carried by the ebb and flow of different dream states. They seeped in from the reality beyond. Things I had a connection to, but also things I couldn't possibly know. I used them in my writing to make it real, so that the parts that weren't would become so. And there were visions that I knew were not real, ideas I had lost, often of Casey. I had written about him for years. I used them as well. The lies had to feel true for them to become true. Had I always written this way? Even before, seen things without realizing I was seeing them, thinking they were mine. Was this what inspiration was for me?
While this one briefly mentions Casey again, the important thing to focus on is the idea of inspiration. This is being defined as the process of being mentally stimulated to feel or do something, usually in regards to a creative pursuit. Alan is stating that in dream states and through visions, the Dark Place is able to give him insight into people, places, and situations that are happening out in the world. As a result, he's able to more accurately alter events without, for lack of a better word, retconning the lives and histories of real people he uses as characters. Before writing Departure, Alan had direct contact or was at least aware of nearly every character in the story. Pat Payne, Mott, Dr. Hartman, Rose Marigold, the Anderson brothers, Rusty, Cynthia Weaver, and Barbara Jagger. Based upon these brief encounters, he got a general feel for them, but also developed an opinion of their personality. Based upon these snapshot opinions, he cast them as characters in the story. However, some details are questioned. Before Alan sat down to write, was Rusty having marital problems? Did Rose have a shrine over her bed? Was Mayne involved in a secret society? These are things he could not have known, unless the process of writing in the Dark Place gave him access to the very same dreamlike visions of the world he described in the second clip. On an almost unconscious level, he learned about these people so that he could be as true as possible to who the person was before the story began, enough that any action this person took was believable. The question of where these visions came from are up to debate. Another definition of inspiration is to take in breath or inhale. It is an archaic way of saying that true inspiration does not come from within. The breath in question, according to old writers, was the breath of God. That inspiration came from outside the individual and is given to the artist in mysterious ways. It sounds as though being in the Dark Place grants a person access to information they otherwise should not know. Whether this is an innate characteristic of this threshold, or there are entities residing in it who sent these visions, is unclear. I doubt this will ever be answered, but it kind of gives us peace of mind. Alan is not taking a random person and radically altering who they are. Their history, their personality, their current situation in life are identical to who they really are. However, he still pushes them in directions he needs, always within the logic of the individual's characterization.
A beginning. A primordial forest. The colors of the fall. The mist. A caldera lake. Silence echoes. loud. It's too late to hear the words. The man, naked, crawls to the shore. Like a birth? To say that would be a lie. Nothing like a birth. The opposite. He staggers to his feet. A carcass of a deer lies on the shore, rotting amidst driftwood. The man is afraid, beside himself. Who is he? He doesn't himself know. Dark waves have washed it away, a blank page where this horror story will be written. He remembers darkness, feels the shadow pressing down on him, coming after him. He must get away. He runs to the forest, to a fate worse than death.
The final clip here sounds like it is the beginning of the next story by Alan Wake. A man awakens on the shore of Cauldron Lake. Despite having no memory of who he is, he has the innate sense he must get away and runs into the woods. One interesting detail is that Alan calls this a primordial forest. The word primordial meaning existing at or from the beginning of time. It could suggest that the woods around Cauldron Lake are older than we realize. Use of the term birth is also interesting. He mentions it in relation to the man, but immediately backtracks on it. Alan could have not mentioned it at all in that case. During the hotline call Jesse received during the AWE DLC, Alan mentions he will be brief and exact with everything he writes. Therefore, there is a reason to include these two sentences. While this could be a tinfoil theory, maybe use of the word birth wasn't supposed to be linked to the man, but to the forest in the lake itself. If the forest is primordial, would it be too much of a stretch to say the lake itself is the cradle of this reality, where it was born, that the lake and the dark place below it is the womb the world was birthed from? That could be completely wrong, and I could be jumping at shadows, as is my habit. Either way, the phrasing used implies that this may be Alan crawling out of the lake and onto the shore, no memory and ready to begin the next chapter in his story. There is another possibility, albeit less likely to be true. The description of the dead deer near the shore brings to mind another writer who went missing in Bright Falls, Jake Fisher. During the Bright Falls miniseries, he is haunted by a deer he hit on the highway. By the end of the story, he vanished without a trace. However, in his journal he mentions this: "I will be the first, the only one to make it through, to come back, and for this reason I am at peace. I have already arranged my legacy." The amnesiac man mentioned is more than likely in reference to Alan, but I think it would be cool to have a callback to this other fallen character as well. All three of these were injected into the remastered version of Alan Wake. One, intended to give some world building on how Alan maintains a sense of realism when using people in his story, and two, to foreshadow potential story beats. It is obvious that these were put in to tease the fan base for the sequel. Once we get to the release date, I cannot wait to reflect on all these ideas and see if we were right or wrong. See you then.
You have been warned.
Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, please drop a like and subscribe to receive updates on future uploads. If you would like to help support the channel, a Patreon has been set up and the link is in the description below. Have a great day and peace be with you all.